All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Tycho Talk. So, as you guys can see, this is not Christos. Christos is obviously a semi-professional soccer player. He's very busy and sometimes our schedules clash. So, we both decided that there'll be times where, he hosts and he invites guests, and sometimes I'll host and I'll invite guests. The majority of the time we'll be doing it together. But for today's episode, I've got a good friend by the name of CALLUM. Now, we met, how long ago did we meet?
Probably 2.5 years ago.
It was a while ago.
A bit longer, maybe 3 years, maybe.
Yeah. And we met through my work. So I used to work at a service station, and Callum used to come in as a regular. I think at the time you were still quite young, and we just connected over mindset. Obviously, we're really both into, the power of the mind, and that's actually the topic that we're going to be covering today.
Yep.
So the power of the mind, the power of positive thinking, the power of the law of attraction as well. And it'll be cool to kind of, dig into this and see how these topics have actually impacted us over the years, because from 2-3 years ago, you're actually a completely different person to when I first met you.
Yep.
But before we get into it, just tell us about, what you do for work, and maybe, I don't like talking about the past, so maybe what's something that one of your dreams or one of your big visions as well.
Awesome, love it. Yeah, so I'm CALLUM. I'm 21 at the moment, out of school a couple years back. I'm working in sales right now, and definitely my dream and something that I'm working towards is financial freedom, because I want that time and also that money, but more from a way to be able to give back is a huge thing for me, impact.
Yeah.
So I want to have the capacity to help others to do that. And of course, through all these things that we'll talk about, as you touched on, grow myself a lot along the way and even use that as a way to help others as well. So
yeah, sweet, man.
Yeah,
I love
definitely.
that. Impact is such a big thing, and it's so undermined. Like, I think everyone's so focused on financial freedom, and that's great. And I obviously, I want to be financially free as well. But we're so focused on financial freedom, status, wealth creation, making so much money, that sometimes people forget their true purpose, which is impact. Mm-hmm. And it's how you actually, what did you do and how did you touch people?
Yep.
Are people, and we've talked about this before, like, people don't actually care about what you say. They care about what?
They care about how you make them feel.
How you make them feel,
Yeah.
right? So it's all about impact. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, so we're basically going to get into it. Now, once again, I love this topic because it's actually changed my life. The power of the mind, and the power for you to understand that you've got the ability to control your mind. And once you've got a control on that, your reality changes for the better. It's such an exciting topic. But before we get into it, we'll touch on the law of attraction. Now, most people should know what the law of attraction is, but for those who don't know, it's basically the concept of like attracts like. So whatever your dominating thoughts are, whatever you're constantly thinking about, whatever you are reinforcing on a basic level will then become your reality, right? And on a deeper level, it's not just what you're thinking, but it's the beliefs that you have about yourself.
Yep, right.
That's really fundamentally, it's actually what you believe about yourself. It doesn't matter if you tell yourself every day that you are confident. You can affirm that you're a confident person, but if deep down you don't believe that, you are not going to see evidence of that in your reality.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So do you want to touch on that a bit? What are your thoughts on that?
As you said, I love this topic so much. I really agree with that. I think that the law of attraction, as you said, is your mind's ability to change yourself and your circumstances, essentially. And you're right, whatever you focus on the most, your dominating thoughts will become emotions and beliefs, and those stem your identity. And I absolutely love it. It's the idea that based on that, your external circumstances can change. And I love what you said about it'll be reinforced. You'll look for evidence of it. Because I'm not sure who's heard about it, but there's a psychological principle called, or a part of your brain, a way that it works, called its reticular activating system.
Yep.
And essentially what that is it's your selective focus. So it's the filter that you see the world. It's what you look out for and try to notice. And that is based upon what you think about and the beliefs that you have. So if you, as you said, see yourself as successful or as confident, you will look for things externally that reinforce that. Or I'm getting paid well at my job, or I have these good people in my life, whatever. But the inverse is also true. So if you think, oh, I'm a loser, I can't do anything, then every time that you fail, you'll be like, see, exactly like I said, that's the case. Because you're the one creating that.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mean that you'll always succeed. If you think you're successful, you'll stumble along the way. But that then gives you the belief you'll be able to succeed in the long term. So you'll get back up and you'll say, no, I can get better, I can learn, all this kind of thing. So I as you said, I love this topic so much.
It's so important that you brought that up because I don't think many people know that concept of, well, what you search for subconsciously, what you are constantly looking out for, the world, the universe is going to give you evidence of that. It is going to prove you right every single time.
Yep.
And so I learned this early on, and on this journey, I think we've both been very intentional about how we think. I will never reinforce negative thoughts because I know that's how the brain works. If I fail at something, it's very rare that I will stay in that energy of, I'm a loser, I suck, I can't do this.
Yep.
I'm never going to succeed. It's very rare that I stay in that energy because I know that as soon as I go down that path and as soon as I start to add emotion to it, it's all about emotion as well. As soon as I start adding emotion, I start to feel like, yeah, I'm actually a loser. Nobody likes me. Nobody wants to be around me. That starts to form my belief system. And then the world is going to prove me right. The world's going to say, you said you were a loser, and I'm going to show you facts, bro. I'm going to show you that you're a freaking loser, and I'm going to give you all these, lack of opportunities, circumstances, silly friends, friends who are not going anywhere. I'm going to do all this to prove your point because that's what you want. And so, as you mentioned, well, if you know that, and when you unlock that, when you understand that that's actually how reality works, then you can start to manipulate in a good way. You can start to manipulate basically your life. You can start to manipulate your experiences because if that's how the universe works and if that's how energy works, then every time you have a negative thought, the first thing that I do is cut the momentum. Anytime I think of something negatively, whenever I fail at something, whenever I go through a relationship breakup, anything negative that happens to me, cut the momentum. I get off topic completely. I say, it's okay. Everything's working out for me. I let it go, and I let the energy flow. I don't sit there and overthink it. I don't sit there and say, why is this happening to me? Why am I so unlucky? Because all that's doing is the energy's in the negative, and all that's doing is reinforcing that. So I kind of let it go, and I change and go into, more of a positive thinking. I change topics completely. I think about, well, this might not be going well in my life right now. What is going well? We're just going to pause for a second. That's all right. All right.
Hey, she got over.
Yeah, she got over. That's all right.
You cheeky
sit down.
dog.
Sit down.
Hey, buddy.
You can be part of the podcast. Sit down. As we were saying before the dogs party crash, the podcast, the power of the mind, right? It's important. And what you search for, you will be given evidence that that's true. And that's reality.
Definitely.
Right? So I guess for you, before we move on to, positive thinking specifically and what you can do to train the mind to be positive, especially in circumstances that are negative, because people think, yeah, that's great. You're talking about positive thinking, but I'm broke. My parents don't support me. I have a crap job. I'm in a really negative place. So all that's great, but you don't understand where I'm at. And so I want to actually talk about, how do we change that attitude to get you into a position where you can be positive even in the worst situations? I guess for you, when it comes to the law of attraction and the power of your mind and what you focus on, you receive, do you have any life experiences?
Man, I have a lot of life experiences about that. And as you touched on before, I'm a completely different person than who I was when we met. Before I was already interested in this stuff as we connected on it, but before I went really deep on it.
I want to put him outside. Hold on. So yeah, tell us about your personal experience with this concept. Okay,
so I love this concept, as I've mentioned, and as you touched on before, when we first met, since then I have completely changed. I've had a huge transformation. I know you have as well. We've both been growing, so there's a lot of experiences I've had that reinforce this. Number one is overall, I'm just far more confident. So I'm a lot more well-spoken. I feel like stand up straight, I have better body language, all this kind of thing. Because when I met, I was quite outgoing, but I don't know if I had a super huge high self-image or self-esteem. And I think
that's true, by the way.
yeah,
That is
definitely
true.
right.
Yep.
It was a bit more of a facade of being able to run around and talk to people, which I was all right at, but it didn't have that layer of depth to it. It didn't have the substance, which I think I've gotten a lot better at being deeper, being more rooted in myself. And that stems a lot from just what I learned. So these conversations, learning about the power of the mind, affirmations, positive thinking, that has completely transformed how I see myself. And because of that, I've transformed and my circumstances have transformed. So I have far better social circle now, a lot better people around me that I associate with, which I love. I feel a lot better and I'm a lot more productive as well. So my capacity for what I'm able to do has wildly increased. I have a lot better work habit. I read more, I listen to more podcasts, I talk to more people, I get more done. And I think I'm also able to impact people better because I see myself not only as confident, but as knowledgeable and as a leader. And that gives me that influence where I'm able to talk about these things, so into people, help them to grow more. And that's that impact that we were talking about. But do you feel like you've also grown as well? What are some changes you've seen in that experience?
I have plenty, but before I go into that, my entire life revolves around this concept, actually, from where I've came from to now. But before I get into that, I don't think the viewers actually understand how much of a transformation you've had. Like, it is actually mind-blowing. I'm sitting here listening to you, and I already knew this because we talk, but when I reflect and I think back the day we met, you're right, very, very outgoing, very sanguine, love to make friends, but listening to you talk now is incredible. And if anything, like, you are a prime example of this topic, of the power of the mind.
Yep, definitely.
Prime example, because you were someone who might not have had much depth to them in terms of how you think and who you're associating with. And now, just listening to you say all this stuff, I'm like, you've, in 2 years, accelerated like this. It's actually crazy to see, honestly.
Yeah, it's wild.
And it goes to show, like, when you're intentional about how you think, how you perceive yourself, what you feed into your mind as well, which a lot of people are, I don't want to read, that's this, that's that. It's like, no, I don't think you understand. When you feed your mind with personal development and positivity and good things, you are going to transform. And you've done that over the last 2 years. And I literally can, like, I know people might not get this, but I'm like, what the hell? Like, I genuinely, just listen to you speak, it's crazy. For me, I guess, I had a very low self-image and self-esteem when I was growing up. I'm not sure what that was rooted in, but it was definitely a thing. Wasn't very confident. And I don't know when I stumbled across this idea of the law of attraction, like attracts like, where the power of the mind is so essential. And if you can control that, you're in control of your life pretty much. I don't know when, I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but I think I was quite naive and I just decided to give it a shot. So things weren't working out for me. And so I didn't really have anything to lose. And I'm not saying in terms of my upbringing, I had a very good upbringing, my loving parents, great home, great family, etc. Not really, I don't think I grew up in struggle necessarily. But in terms of me as a person, there was always lack. Self-love wasn't there. My self-image was low. The way I perceived myself was terrible. There's always lack. And I think that I got to the point where I just said, look, let me just see what this is all about. Just see. Because it sounds like gibberish when you don't know. Like, just affirm.
I used to think that way.
Just affirm. Yeah, just say affirmations every day. Like, I am love, I am confident. Yeah, it sounds like a bunch of crap, but I guess I just took that risk and I said, well, I have nothing to lose. Let me start to affirm who's the type of person that I want to be. And let me write down these characteristics and these traits. And let me just start to affirm them. And so every day I would sit there and I didn't feel loved. And so I would sit there and I would write, I am love. I am worthy of love. I am loved. And I would, and it's not just with that, I am confident. I am this, I am that. And I would actually stand there in the shower and affirm to myself. And nothing happened. Because I was just saying them. The next day, do the same thing. I did it for maybe a couple of weeks. And then I went out once. And this is really interesting. And this lady because so one of my affirmations was like, I get compliments, like people compliment me. And I went out once and this lady complimented my eyes. She's like, you've got really beautiful eyes. I'm like, thank you. What do you think that did?
That reinforced the affirmations you were saying. That belief got stronger.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it reinforced the affirmations because remember, it would have been 2 weeks where I didn't feel anything. I'm like, this is ridiculous, but I kept going. I had one interaction that reinforced that. She's reinforcing these affirmations. And so what did that do? That actually struck an emotional response in me. And I started to say, holy crap, she's just responded to what I've been telling myself. And that made my emotions stronger. And so the next night where I was in the shower, I wasn't just affirming, I had emotion to it. I actually felt it. I am love. Holy crap, like I actually am. I am worthy. I actually am. And so emotions started to mix in and then it just skyrocketed. My experience exponentially just changed because I'd added that emotion to it. And every time I added emotion to it, I would go out in public and I'd have people approach me and have opportunities arise. Forget about networking. I'd have opportunities, different job opportunities, uni. I actually manifested so much of my uni success and how everything worked. So I think for me, that's how it started. I just took a risk. It was not really a risk because I had nothing to lose, but I just took a chance on it, I guess.
Yep.
And all I needed was one piece of evidence that it was my affirmations were actually doing something. And then I brought in the emotion and then it just went crazy. Now everything I affirm, I genuinely feel it and I believe it. And then the next day now, it will happen. If I affirm something, I'm literally the next day, I will meet someone who will reinforce that to me.
Yep.
And it's the craziest thing, right?
It really is.
So that's pretty cool. I guess let's explore the idea of, positive thinking. So more specifically though, because we have touched on positive thinking, we understand how important it is to positive think. Let's talk about ways of practicing positive thinking, especially in situations where you're not a very positive person, your circumstances aren't that great, you're in a really negative headspace.
Yep.
What are some ways that you reckon someone could start practicing positive thinking?
Well, first of all, I think negative thinking, you shouldn't blame yourself for that because it's pretty inherent. So the mind naturally will veer towards negativity unless you intentionally steer it in the other direction. And that's there to help you. Evolutionarily, I got to look out for tigers and for people with clubs that want to kill me, right? So you want to be looking for danger, evolutionarily. We're in a world now, there's not that much danger. Obviously, some countries and stuff, it depends where you live. But the average person in this house here, we're pretty safe, right? But that mind evolutionarily still has that tendency to veer towards the negative. So you shouldn't blame yourself for it. But it's something that you can intentionally and slowly work on. So ways that you can practice that are very slowly. So with neurons in the mind, pathways. Repetitive thoughts are just a neural network that has been very heavily strengthened. That's fired 100 times, therefore it's natural. It's common that thought will come up. If you start a new thought, exactly how you said where until there's that feeling to it, it doesn't feel strong, right? In that same way, it's not going to be strong initially. I've heard it as a...
Very true.
Right?
Very true.
I've heard
and that's the key though. I don't mean to interrupt you because I want to get into what you heard, but that is what you need to unlock. It's not going to be strong. So that's where you actually have to be persistent because a lot of people don't really get that. They think that it's going to happen straight away. No. They think that if they affirm for a week, they should see some results, but it's actually that the ability to persevere through that time where you don't see results through your affirmations, because it is not going to happen straight away, right? But yeah, keep going.
Yep, I love that. Exactly. It's like if you go out on a walking track, right? And you see it's not a built path, it's not cemented on the ground, but there's a kind of gap in the grass where people have always walked. If that trail's been walked 100 times, it's flat and the stuff doesn't grow there, it's a clear path you can see. That could be a negative repetitive thought you have, where you're so used to walking down it, it's easy, you can see that way. Whereas if you try to start forming positive thought patterns, it'll be huge tall grass, trees everywhere, and you'll have to bit by bit chop away at them. It might take weeks before you see any path. It'll feel like you're not making any progress.
Yeah.
But eventually you'll break through. There'll be a clear path. That'll be strengthened. And that feeling will be there to reinforce it, right?
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I think the key with it is consistency. And exactly as you said, even if you're not seeing results yet, that will come. So to keep on with it. But the other ways to practice it would be, as I said before, intentionality as well. So I'll do affirmations at least in the morning and at the night, when I wake up and when I go to sleep. Any time in between that is great. Obviously, the more repetitions, the better. But if you're busy or if you are just getting started with it, twice in the day is fine. And I really like what you touched on earlier as well about even if you're in a really negative situation, how can you change that attitude? And I think a big way for that is gratitude. Find even the tiniest little things that are positive.
That's so true.
Yeah, that you appreciate, right?
Yeah.
And that can have a huge impact on your outlook. Because whatever, go on.
No, I was just going to say it's all about perspective. You're right.
Yeah.
And that's actually such a good thing to touch on, because no matter how bad you have it, you don't have it as bad as someone else.
Yeah.
There's someone out there. I remember this quote, and I think you know which quote I'm going to say. There's someone out there wishing for your bad day. There is someone out there in poverty, and he's like 6 years old, and he's going to provide for his family of 6, and he is praying for your bad day in Australia, in a first world country. And so when you see it like that, and you view the world as, okay, life sucks, you know, I can't get the girl of my dreams, I'm fat, whatever it is, right? I don't have the money, my parents are abusive. You can go on for ages in terms of how bad you have it. But as soon as you shift that mindset and think about, well, what do you actually have that you can be grateful for? What can you be thankful for? Because there will be something. If you're in Australia, there will be something. The fact that you're just in Australia is something to be grateful on. And that is, I guess, what then allows you to be in that energy of gratitude. And you start to manifest more things that you are grateful for. You start to manifest more good things. So I think that's so important, and that's such a good tip for anyone who does feel like they're in a negative space. Find something, sit down every day and write a list of 5 things that you're grateful for, that you can be grateful for.
Yep.
That's such a big thing. But yeah, keep
And
going.
it can be so tiny. It can be as simple as you are healthy, you can breathe.
Yeah.
Some people might have like asthma, or they can't. They're in a coma on a respirator, whatever, right? Or that you have a family, or you're in Australia even, as you said. So that's a big one, because whatever you focus on, you'll get more of. You'll attract more.
Absolutely.
And it'll expand.
Yep.
So if you start focusing on little things that you're grateful for, either your perspective on what you have will change, or more positive things will actually come into your life to be grateful for, which is really powerful. So another one is not only the thinking that you do, but your environment, right? So if you make your affirmations, your positive thoughts, the things that you want to become natural to you, visual, that'll also have a huge impact. So you already said, for example, reading is really important. If you write up your affirmations, not just saying them, but if you write them and you have them on a mirror, for example, or sticky note, whiteboard, whatever, that is another source of input of that positive content, that the types of thought patterns that you want going into your head.
Yep.
And that'll be a huge one. And speaking them, not just thinking them, speaking them. Because if you say it out loud, it just seems more real, I feel. And
absolutely.
Not only do you say it, you hear it.
Absolutely.
It goes in again. It's kind of a cycle of double, right?
To add on that, because 2 things, and something that's really helped me is my mirror affirmations, which I have to redo, because last year I had a ton on, and everything that I affirmed on my mirror, every time I got up at 5:30 to gym and I saw my affirmations there, happened. I do feel successful, and I've got a long way to go, but I feel that energy. I do feel wealthy. I do feel loved. I do feel all this stuff that I had on my mirror. The second thing as well is I actually learnt to speak to myself as if I was my own best friend. And I genuinely mean it. I have conversations with myself out loud. And people might think that's crazy, but that's fine. I don't mind you calling me crazy. Like I'm seeing the fruits of it in my life. I'm seeing what I attract on a day-to-day basis, the people I interact with. I'm seeing the improvement in my self-image and my confidence just by simply having conversations with myself. Meaning, if I'm on the road and someone cuts me off, as I mentioned before, I always try and cut off the negative momentum as quickly as possible. So I always give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he didn't see me. Maybe he was having a bad day. Just cut off that energy. And then I talk myself out of feeling angry. It's okay. It's 5 seconds out of a whole day. And I literally say that out loud though. So I talk to myself as if I had a best friend next to me who was talking me out of feeling angry and talking me out of reacting out of frustration to this guy who's just cut me off. And keep in mind, it is 100% his fault, but I haven't put it on him. I've taken actually responsibility to an extent. I said, look, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm taking responsibility over not his actions, because he's responsible over his actions. I'm taking responsibility over my emotion and my ability to choose how I react to that. And that just, because I have that conversation with myself, like, it's okay, just let it go, I actually calm myself out of feeling angry, and I go about my day, and my day's great.
Yep.
Vice versa, if I was to, stick the finger up at him and beep at him and react negatively, I could almost guarantee that maybe a half hour later, I'd have another negative interaction. And it might not be on the road, but I'd have another negative interaction. And then 45 minutes after that, I'd have another one. And then by the end of the day, I have so much negativity in my vortex. I've just piled up all this negativity throughout the day that I get to bed. I'm like, this freaking sucks. Like, life sucks. Like, it's not working out for me. And I wake up in such a bad mood again, and it all starts again. Do you get what I'm saying?
Definitely.
So those two things are important. Talk to yourself as if you're your own best friend. When something good happens, celebrate yourself. When something bad happens, celebrate yourself. Still talk to yourself like it's okay.
Yep.
It's one thing that happened today. Just you're going to be better tomorrow. I don't know if you have experience with that, but I talk to myself a lot.
I do.
Oh my God, it sounds crazy, right? I talk to myself a lot, but I'm serious.
It's true.
I affirm, it's all affirmations, right?
It's all affirmations, yeah. I love what you touched on then. And I really like, because as we already mentioned earlier, where people will say, I'm doing these affirmations, but negative stuff externally is still happening. It's not going to be 100%. You're not going to do affirmations and then live in a utopia.
Absolutely.
Where there's no bad stuff, right?
Absolutely.
But it gives you the capacity to be able to handle it better and to attract more positive things.
Yep.
And what you said about you can't control their actions, but you can control your reaction to it, right? You took responsibility. Yep. And I read this in a book, which I actually had to put the book down. It was so profound, right? He said, it's your responsibility to choose how you think, your reaction back to it, right? And it's completely within your control.
Yep.
You can't always control the external. You can always control how you think.
What book did you read that from? Is that The Law of Success?
The Law of Success was a big one that touched on it.
Because that book touches on the only thing that is in your control and that people can't take away from you is your mindset.
Yep.
And it's how you react to things, and it's how you control your emotion. Nobody can take that away from you.
No.
Nobody. And so if nobody can take that away from you, and it's all about your mindset, it's all about how you perceive situations and react to situations, good, bad, beautiful, ugly, then I don't think people understand how much power you hold in your hands for your life. So that's great. Keep going, bro.
It's a massive one. And when you also said earlier perspective, right, where you talk to yourself like your own best friend, one thing that I'll do, which is something that you can apply, it's an applicable thing as well, is you don't know why they're doing that action, right?
Absolutely.
So if someone cuts me off, I'll literally say to myself, maybe they're being held at gunpoint and being forced to drive crazy.
Something crazy.
Maybe their pregnant wife is in the passenger seat. Who knows?
That's true.
Right?
I give the benefit of the doubt always, yeah.
Exactly. And that completely changes your perspective on it. You won't be mad. You might even feel sad, sorry for them. You're like, oh, I hope they do okay, right? And going back to that idea of you're completely in control of your thoughts, right? He says you take responsibility for that, and that's your response ability, your ability to choose how you respond.
Yeah, I love that.
In a situation. And that's what I had to put the book down. I was like, that's actually crazy. Because you're right, it completely puts it in your control. You're not always able to control the external thing, but you can control your response, and that will lead to your actions, your thoughts about it, what you attract, and the behaviors that you do to make it better.
Yep.
You can work on, if you have a bad job, getting a new job. You can work on either mending relationships with people or family, or maybe finding other good association around you, whatever the case is.
Yep.
Right? So it's completely within your control, which is really empowering.
It is. Absolutely. It's freeing.
It's completely freeing. It's also hard because it's your responsibility.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But it does give you all the power.
Exactly.
Because it means you can be the one that chooses what you create and what you do.
Yep.
And something that is touched on in I think my all-time favorite book, which is What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. And it's exactly what you were talking about, where you were doing the affirmation, you get complimented. And then you get complimented, it reinforces it, right? So your mind will look for evidence that reinforces any belief that it has. But the great part about that is it doesn't mean that you need to have the belief with the most external evidence. You can choose whatever belief empowers you the most.
Expand on that.
So,
Like, what do you mean?
For example, you can look on the news, right? And there's a bunch of negative things going on in the world. Or maybe you can look around, you're like, oh, I have all these bad influences in my life. I'm not where I want to be. And that's true, right? Some of that may be true. And there's nothing at this stage you can do about that. But that doesn't mean that you have to let that completely become a part of your identity and the belief that you form, right? You can choose a belief that empowers you. So if you actually choose, I am capable of creating the exact life that I want. I am able to do anything. If you form that belief, even similar to the gratitude, it'll start in small ways, but maybe literally you clean your room and you go, oh, I'm in control of that. I was able to shape this part of things. Or you go out there and you have a conversation that leads to you getting a job interview. You're like, yeah, I can get out and have a better job, or I can completely change the external part of my life. And I just think it's such a powerful concept. I absolutely love it.
It is. I guess, I mean, obviously when it comes to ways of practicing positive thinking, there's so many other things that you can do. We won't go into it completely. I think, reading as well is powerful. I mean, you're getting this from books that you've read. And it's really powerful. And people, I will say this on every podcast if I have to. Reading is the greatest thing that someone can do. If they're wanting to, especially personal development books, if you're wanting to accelerate and be a better person and expand your mind, pick up a really good book and start reading it. And you'll see how you transform over 6 months to a year.
Podcasts as well.
Podcasts,
this kind of thing.
So I guess, I mean, I heard this quote today. I think I read it on Instagram, and we'll wrap up with this. It was, and this ties into the power of the mind, because if you're in control of your mind, what does that mean?
If you're in control of your mind, you're a...
Like, if you're in control of the mind, like, what are you? It starts with D.
Starts with D. I don't know.
You do know.
I feel like as soon as you say it, I'll know.
Yeah, discipline.
Discipline,
I knew I was going to say, you were like, nah, that's a tough question, because I didn't give much context to that. But if you're in control of the mind, you're disciplined. And I'm really big on discipline. And I read this quote today where it said, the greatest form of self-love is discipline. That is the greatest form of self-love. If you want to do something for yourself, to show yourself that you respect yourself and that you love yourself, become disciplined. Start to be intentional. Like you said, you have to be intentional about what you are feeding your mind. Be intentional about how you react to things. Be intentional about growing your mind and being in control of it. There are so many people out there who I interact with who are not in control of their mind at all. They let the news dictate how they think and believe. They let their association dictate how they think and believe. They let their coworkers, they let drugs, alcohol, clubs. There are so many people out there who are not in control. And it's really sad to see. But the thing is, anyone can turn that around. But I just want to leave, I want to, really emphasize that quote. It's no good doing all this stuff to make yourself feel better, to put yourself on a pedestal if you don't love yourself. If there's no self-love there, everything you're striving for, and what's the point? And the greatest form of self-love is being disciplined, is being in control of your mind. What are your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree with that. I really agree with that, because I think it goes back to that control again. You are the one that dictates what you'll actually create. And it also means that it still acknowledges the fact that things will be difficult. So there'll still be things that you have to overcome, but it puts that power back in your control, and it really, speaks to the idea that you're putting in the work now to live that life down the track that you really want. So you're doing the affirmations now to get rid of those trees, form that good path of positive thought patterns and neural connections. You're doing the work now because when you, for example, do affirmations, you won't always, it's not like it'll all come to you. There'll just be opportunities for you to create it, right? So I think if you're disciplined, you will then follow through on the actions required to turn that identity and that belief into its external counterpart.
Can I just stop you there? Because that's a really powerful point. Just because you do the affirmations doesn't mean your whole life is going to switch overnight.
Yep.
You're not going to get exactly what you want. You're going to get the opportunities. Meaning that there's a big difference between receiving an opportunity and receiving it. You need to take action. When that opportunity presents itself, you need to take action.
Yep.
You need to propel yourself to that opportunity. And then obviously once you do, that will then reinforce even more what you're affirming. So that's really important what you just said there, but yeah, keep going.
Definitely. And not only do you need to take action on the opportunity, something that really helped me to, I guess, get a grasp on that is that doing these affirmations, not only is it the external world, but it's the internal traits, as we've talked about. So you're disciplined, you're confident. When you feel good, literally your bandwidth, your capacity is increased.
Absolutely.
They've done studies on this, right? Yep. When you're happier, you can recall things better.
Yep.
So you're able to have a better conversation with someone. High value, you can recall what you've read. You're able to communicate it in a better way. You, like in all these different ways, you're happier, so you have a better influence on people. You can add value in a more easy way. So I think that was from the Happiness Advantage I learned that.
That's awesome.
Which is really good. So I recommend that book for everyone as well.
That's good.
So many books. But I think that, discipline is such an important part of creating the life you want. It's the perfect, I think, bridge between the internal affirmation creation and the external work needed to be done to create it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think you agree with that.
100%. I love everything you just said. Let's close up on this. One tip for someone who might not be in a good space and wants to change their life around and they don't know where to start. And we're obviously saying start with the mind. You want to change your external, you've got to change the internal. And what controls your internal? This. It's the most powerful thing, and it's so underutilized, if that's a phrase. As in, we're not using our brain at full capacity at all. Nowhere near. And which just blows my mind that our brains are still, there's so much potential for us, and we're only kind of scratching the surface. But before we wrap up, what would you say is one good tip that you could give someone?
I think just consistency. So consistency with the small little things. So keep in mind that it'll take time, but you just need to make tiny little changes. So if you every day just be intentional about literally twice a day do an affirmation, or focus on a tiny little, even if it's external, way that you can make your life a tiny bit better. Clean something, talk to one person, reach out, write some things that you're grateful for. That over time will compound into such significant change that you'll be a different person, as we talked about. You will not even recognize who you are or your circumstances. Yeah,
that's a great one. And and obviously we're going to wrap up now, but The Compound Effect, another really good book. That book changes a lot because when you understand how the compound effect works and how compounding works, you realize that what's crazier than positive compounding? Negative compounding. And people don't get that. Like it's one thing to be in a positive, on a
trajectory
positive on a positive path, and we know that it compounds. Like the little things that you do every day will then give you a massive result in a few months to 6 months to a year. What people don't understand is that's actually happening on the other end. If you're not intentional about this, if you let your mind be controlled by alcohol, drugs, negative people, you're compounding the opposite. And so in a year, you're going to be such a negative person in a really bad place. I guess just to add on to what you said when it comes to consistency, I'll add on and I'll say patience. And I think you did say just be patient with it, be consistent and patient. You've got to be patient. If you're coming from a place that is so bad, what makes you think you're going to be able to change years of programming, negative programming, in 2 to 3 months? You're not going to. But a lot of people don't understand that you've got to persevere. It's kind of like going to the gym. You can go to the gym and you're not gonna see results for a while. It doesn't mean that the things that you're doing at the gym in the first 1 to 2 months is not impacting you. It's impacting you more than you think. And even forget about trying to put on muscle. It's impacting this more than you think. But it's going to take a while before you actually start to see results.
Definitely.
When you look in the mirror and you're like, holy crap, like I feel good about myself. I look good. It's going to take a while. And so I think patience and consistency will get you there. Especially, and I think it's just being aware of what I just said. I mean, you're trying to reverse years of negative programming. So just take it easy on yourself and just stick with it, and then obviously you'll see the results.
Definitely. And it really relates to us. Like, it's not like we in 2 or 3 months completely changed ourselves.
Yeah,
it did take that
time.
long for us to get over the conditioning we had, transform in that way.
Yeah.
So I hope that we can be, I guess, inspiring in that way. Where if we're at already this stage from what we've done, and we, as you said, have a long way to go.
A long way to go.
But you can, from any place that you're at, grow yourself and be so much further down the track. If you apply what we've said, do the intentionality, the consistency, and have that patience with it.
Easy, man. All right, that was awesome, man. Well, I appreciate having you on, and I guess that's another episode done. I'm sure you'll be on in the future. The three of us will get when Chris is back. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hope that was impactful, and yeah, appreciate you coming on, man.
Great to see you, man. Thank you.